in the evening, and I'm here, Saad, in London, in southeast London, and I've got Gregory there. I hope, Gregory, are you with me?
Yes, of course. I'm here in Brussels.
Welcome, welcome. So let me tell you what it is like here in London. It's overcast today. It was, let's say, reasonably. It wasn't very hot, but it was, let's say, just warm. How is it in Brussels?
Exactly the same. It's overcast right now.
Okay.
It was fairly warm earlier.
Very good. So, dear listeners, this is the spiritual discussion program. Just apologies for our delay in starting today. We had some technical issues, but hopefully you can hear us loud and clear with no echo. We should be fine now. So, dear listeners, yes, it's the spiritual discussion program. The aim of our show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdul-Shin. And we have a new topic every week, and the topic for this week is why the greatest talkers wield the greatest power and influence. I'm going to say it again. Why the greatest talkers wield the greatest power and influence. And you can join us in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us is our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And you may have noticed last week, listeners, we were not there. Let's say there was a health emergency and we couldn't hold the show, but it's all back to normal now. So hopefully, well, this topic we were going to do last Tuesday, we are doing the same topic. The topic we're doing it today. So we'd love you to join us, as I mentioned. I want to begin with, what is the Grail message? The Grail message, in the light of truth, by Abdul-Shin, is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized, and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abdul-Shin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote, listeners, from the author of the Grail Message, Abdrusheen. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks the truth. So, dear listeners, I want to just remind you again, the topic for discussion tonight, it is why the greatest talkers wield the greatest power and influence. Why the greatest talkers wield the greatest power and influence. And you can join us in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us, our UK number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. So, dear listeners, the topic we've chosen, why the greatest talkers wield the greatest power and influence. And, well, the time we live today, we don't need to really name names because we hear the news every day. And we certainly know there are people who give big speeches, especially politicians and leaders such as that. And they do have a lot of power and influence. So how come that's happening? And also in history, we know that too. Many big figures, many big leaders had the same sort of effect on human beings in masses of countries. So we're going to look at that. How can that be? So Gregory, one thing, there's a very famous saying, actions speak louder than words. But in today's topic, we are talking as if the words have a greater effect, because it says the greatest talkers have the wield or have the capability of greatest power and influence. So can I ask you, Gregory, are words more powerful than even actions?
Once you know that words themselves are actions, they're activities of speech. So it's only a minor part of actions. One would say is the major part. So it will not be right to say that words, which is only a minor part, are more powerful to the real deeds.
That's interesting, that words are also actions and deeds. It may not be so obvious to see that, because actions, you see them physically, but words, you don't see them. They are not physical. Yes, I mean, we have said it has the greatest, in this title we've chosen today, why the greatest talkers wield the greatest power and influence. So, I mean, actions, we know, obviously, you take action, there's automatically, you see the result. When you say words, I mean, maybe again, Gregory, like we do normally, let's explore the whole title, words by word, and look at it in step by step. So we're talking here about the greatest talkers. So let me just first say, does every word have an effect? Does every word have a consequence?
Words are only channels for communications, albeit verbal communications. There are other channels of communications. So other channels like say sight communication, feeling communication. So one will say that words are channels through which verbal or communication could be passed from one to another in such a way that there is some form of meaning. How the listener responds to this is a different issue altogether.
Yes. So, okay. I mean, now you say that it really does. It is one of our sense. Speaking is one of our abilities. So, and you can see the animals. Not that we want to deviate too much from this topic. They're not able to talk like we do. They do communicate, but we seem to have a very incredible vocabulary, and we seem to be able to create new words. And obviously, we have art. Books, famous books. Shakespeare and Charles Dickens. Obviously, I'm only talking about English now. I'm sure there's plenty in other countries and other sort of parts of the world. So yeah, so that and they do have effects when we think about that. And obviously, in the countries we have leaders. I'm just thinking, and how, let's say, in democracies that we have, the people go for election, they have to do a campaign, and they have to give speeches and so on, and people listen to that and then obviously respond. And like how you said, how people respond is not the you can say we're not robots, so we listen, but we don't have to automatically react to the same way what the leader or whoever's giving the speech to, just automatically obey what they say or just follow what they say. So, okay. So now I want to explore this thing a bit more. Yeah, so Gregory, I mean, there's also, I'm just thinking, there's so many questions coming in my head right now. Even you hear stories as children, isn't it? Which are, let's say, I would say just for learning rather than, or maybe they have a moral in their stories and so on. So let me not go there. Because that's a bit diverting from our topic for tonight. So, okay, let's focus on the greatest talkers. Which I'm thinking of the political leaders, actually, of the countries and so on. Yeah, I want to ask Gregory, sometimes when these leaders are talking, they're saying big statements, big words, let's say very, in quotes, positive or uplifting words, but you don't know if really there's a substance behind it, and if it's really those, that, let's say, even they have a vision, whether that's really practically deliverable. So would you say, Gregory, there's something within us human beings where when we are listening to words, we are somehow touched by the words, but it's like the words are almost driving us rather than we think about what is being said? Is there somehow something within these words which seems to drive us?
Actually, whenever a speech is made, albeit verbal, what happens is that it communicates some form of expression to the listener. The listener, most of the time, responds. That means if he or she understands what the communication is or the meaning of this. For here we are speaking in English. If one were to speak in French, those words would be meaningless because you do not understand French or German or Japanese or Chinese. So those ones be automatically eliminated. But for those who understand the syntax of these words over time, a meaning is communicated to them. That is, in quotes, a particular pattern or evolution is passed on to the listener. How the listener responds depends in his or her maturity, or how he's able to understand the evolution which is passed across.
Thank you for that. Yes, I mean, you and I are talking. Obviously, daily, there's always a communication between people, families, and work, and so on. So that's, you could say, is our usual way of communicating. And here, as we say, the title tonight is Why the Greatest Talkers Wield the Greatest Power and Influence. So, and like you've already said, how you understand what is being said. Of course, if it's not in the same language, it's not going to have much of an effect. But assuming that it's all in the same language and it's understandable, and the communication will land. How you respond is, up to each individual. However, when we are talking about, for example, speeches of leaders, and as I said, most of them, when people make speeches, it's supposed to be inspiring or pushing a, I'll use the word agenda or some sort of point there, and then people have an interest in that, I will say, and so they will be moved if that is what they are looking for, and obviously that has a power and influence. So I wouldn't to say, so it's not automatic. I'm almost answering my own question, so I don't want to go and do that. Let me not do that. So okay. So I think let's look at some, impacts that we see from the news stories that we are hearing. So I don't want to be too specific all the time, but maybe we can use examples. For example, famous people, Gregory, like Trump right now, when he says something, there's always some reaction from the public. Sometimes it's in his favor, sometimes, some people will always be in his favor, others are not in his favor. And he's almost like, Gregory, what I want to ask is sometimes he's saying things or making statements almost to get a reaction. So I want to just ask, is there some power actually? Because we do say there's a great power. So is there some inherent power in the words when we speak that sort of touches people?
Actually, there is absolutely no power at all. What happens is more of an influence, depending on people who have similar tendencies. Those who have similar tendencies, which one may refer to as homogeneous tendencies, are easily can easily identify with those which speech a person is giving, and will latch onto it. So it is that the people, because of similar tendencies, are easily swayed. But were they to examine these words very carefully and see how these speeches could manifest and enthuse people in accordance with the natural laws, then one will find whether those speeches are realizable or is just what many will refer to as hot air. So there is no power as such in these speeches, but these speeches are able to influence because of homogeneity. For those of who reflect very deeply, they can already separate the kernels from the chaff. But many leaders are very clever nowadays. One may say those who have responsibilities always have ways of making their speeches to hide their real intentions.
Thank you for that. Actually, that really brings me to the next big point in here, because people say words, or leaders say words, and they can sound very uh, strong and maybe poetic, and then people, let's say, I don't want to use the word fall for that, but they just are, it's an appealing thing for them, and then they're not looking at the substance. And at the same time, uh, do we know if these people who are making the speeches, are they, what is actually their intention? Because they could be saying something just to get the power, and we don't know actually if they mean that, if they actually mean to do what they're promising. So, Gregory, so if we listen to words, I'm just going to follow what you've said there. If you listen to their speech, a particular speech, would you be able to tell the intention just by looking at the words and listening to the words? Or do you have to know the person like deeply somehow, that you can trust what their words are?
By their activities, one may have an inkling, if one is quite intuitive, to find out what their volitions are. Superficially, the words may be, in quotes, inspiring, but when those words are subjected, or those speeches are subjected to the realities of everyday life, what one finds is inner emptiness. Like it is said, a flood of meaningless words is enough to intoxicate many other people because they love it. They themselves do not wish to investigate further, and therefore they are easily, in their indolence, they are easily swayed. Such things as what had happened in the past, where you have, in the case of Christ, where it's Hosanna today, and even before the day breaks, is crucified. Such behavior or such herd mentality is only based on lack of personal deepening and personal examination of whatever has been offered. Hello? 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 It's sad there. Hello? Meanwhile, it seems that SAD is off the air. So I intend to read a very simple passage from the work In the Light of Truth. And it's taken from the lecture, The Call for the Helper. It says here, just look more closely at all those people who today, with special eagerness, are seeking for a spiritual helper. Those who, inwardly uplifted, are awaiting him. In their opinion, they themselves are already thoroughly prepared spiritually to recognize him and to hear his word. On calm observation, we notice a great many factions. Christ's mission, for instance, affected so many people in a strange way. They formed a false picture of it. As usual, this was due to their wrong self-assessment, their presumption. Instead of the former veneration and the preservation of a natural gulf and sharp demarcation towards their God, there has arisen, on the one hand, a plaintive begging, which always wants only to receive, but on no account to contribute anything itself. They certainly accepted the prey, but refused to acknowledge that this was also coupled with and work on yourself. Again, on the other hand, people imagine that they are so self-reliant, so independent, that they can do everything themselves, and with little effort even become divine. There are so many such people who only demand and expect God to run after them, inasmuch as he had already once sent his Son. He proved thereby how greatly concerned he is that mankind should draw near to him. Indeed, that he probably even needs them. I'll stop there.
Hello, Gregory.
Hello.
I'm back. Unfortunately, it seems my internet went down and I'm using my mobile.
Oh, I see.
So hopefully that's working now. You can hear me loud and clear?
Yes, very well.
Okay, good. So I'll carry on. Apologies for that, listeners, but hopefully Gregory was there for us to carry on. I believe you read something, a call from the helper.
Yes, I did.
Okay, very good. Very good. So let's continue. Just again, listeners, to remind you for tonight, the topic we are dealing with, it is why the greatest talkers wield the greatest power and influence. And so far we have explored that words have an influence, but the power, it only comes if people listen to those words and act on that. So it's not like the words automatically become powerful just because they're spoken. So, and Gregory, we were talking before the interruption that about the intention when people speak, that what actually they mean when they speak. So, and as I think you mentioned that we do have this intuition where when people speak, we can actually sense the intention, not only the words that they're speaking, people are speaking, whether they mean what they say or not. So, And that's quite something, because I would say people don't think about that. It's like I would say in practice, in real life, we seem to learn or only seem to discover when something actually acts on what they say, and if it were happen, if they do it or if they don't do it. And that's how we say by their actions you know them. So, okay, so I want to now. There's another thing I want to explore, Gregory, slightly changing the sort of things that we've been talking about. There's also silence, because people. Before I go into silence, let me just say people do talk a lot, and I mean I'm talking. When I say that, it sounds very general. So let me just be more specific. Of course, there's let's say daily gossip about the weather and let's say how's the family and things like that, which in this topic tonight we are not thinking about that. So that one obviously doesn't have, you could say, or it's not so important or not so influential. But then we do, let's say we just talk anyway in general about things. So is there any effect on the, let's say in our world, through this, I'm going to use the word excessive talking, but just does talking actually, let's say, affect our future in any way, in how we live, or is it purely just communication? Because you could say things which are meaningless, and you could say something that is meaningful. So is there any difference between speaking meaningful things and meaningless things?
Of course, there is a big difference between those things which are meaningful and those which do not have any meaning. In the first instance, to be involved in things which have no meaning is an absolute waste of time and energy. Which time and energy could be focused on those things which are upbuilding. Those things which have no meaning have no upbuilding. In fact, they have a disintegrating effect on the personality, because you do not build any structure which brings benefit. So why engage in that which does not bring you any benefit? So these are quite two different things. Whereas that which is meaningful must be meaningful in sense of the laws of creation through which everyone came into existence. That is, making use of the time and effort granted to one whilst here on earth to mature for that which is beneficial, which is upbuilding, as with everything which is upbuilding, requires some time for deeper reflection. Whereas for that which is destructive, you don't require much time. And if meaningless words are destructive, that means you are putting things down. You're not building up yourself. So one should strive to engage in that which is upbuilding. For the so-called speech is also tied to the frontal brain, which is the seat of the intellect. Whereas that which has deep meaning springs from the back brain, which is the seat of one's intuition.
Thank you for that. That sort of reminds me when I spoke earlier about people, about books and poems and Shakespeare and Charles Dickens. Those are like moving and inspiring books, stories and so on. And so and obviously when we talk about political leaders, they have a totally different agenda. They're wanting power for changing the country and so on. And their words, although they can be poetic, but it's more about, let's say, the earthly. So, Gregory, with words, I mean, we've talked about meaningful and meaningless, but what about, and we've talked about upbuilding and destructive. So, the effect of these words. Are we, these, let's say, these writers of like Charles Dickens and Shakespeare, in what sort of benefit do they have? Is it a spiritual benefit? Because obviously reading a book, that type of book, it's not really, I would say it's not, well, apart from making improve your English, I guess, in terms of that sort of level, is it meant to be, what's the purpose of that, those stories and things?
Many times when some people read these books, they strive to absorb the meaning. That means there are many features, which features are in different society, which helps to build up structures in different societies. And in absorbing this, it goes through the frontal brain towards the back brain, which is where the intuition springs from, although it all comes from the spirit. And in due course, there is, during quiet reflection, a response to what they have absorbed. These are the things the writers wish to convey by speaking about their environment, by speaking about the country which they are, or in different countries, capturing some salient features and allowing the spirit in a concentrated form to look into it. Some of these writers, they are expressing some of the things they had experienced at different earth lives, or they have sort of brought forth experiences from different earth lives, which experiences are very helpful. So it goes a long way when you have these writers, bringing these things forth, such that many can use those experiences to mature.
No, thank you for that. Yes. So, what you're showing is that words are beneficial on multi-levels. And, we think, we said it was communication, but there's, let's say, deeper things as well, where it's uplifting and they're giving messages, so that's, inspiring people, to be happy, you could say, in their lives. And you might think, because in a way, we are not machines, we are not mechanical things doing, just here to work and have a job and, earn money to have a home and things like that. Is a multi-level of activities, and it's like food, music, and here we're talking about words, so they're all a part of our life. So thank you for highlighting that. Now I've received a couple of questions from a listener, and they're referring to when we were talking about earlier on about the speeches where so I'm just going to say the question now. The question is, first question is, if most speeches are empty in truth, why are they very influential? So I'll repeat that question. This is, if most speeches are empty in truth, Why are they very influential?
Such speeches are influential to people of herd mentality. For many who are unable to examine these speeches, to find out the volition behind such speeches. For anyone who is very discerning, we want to find the meaning of these speeches or what lies behind these speeches. For many who do not do that, due to their indolence, they easily fall for it. Like one had mentioned, look at the case of Christ, where many who only had Hosanna, and they shouted Hosanna without even asking, what is this Hosanna about? And only the following day, they had crucify without even asking, what is this crucify thing about? Such herd mentality is what one finds in many places. For many who fall for it are very indolent people. They are not sure whether that Hosanna was praising someone or the crucify was meant for their own person. If they themselves knew that by shouting crucify, that crucifixion could be for their own children or for their own fathers, they would not have said that. So most of the time when you find speeches or slogans being thrown around that way, each personality must examine what it's all about.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Dear listeners, I just want to remind you, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abrushin. And if you are interested in getting a copy of the Grail Message or want to get some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is why the greatest talkers wield the greatest power and influence. Why the greatest talkers wield the greatest power and influence. And you're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us is our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, there's another question from the listener, which I'd like to put to you. It says, why are empty words harmful? Can you describe why this is so? I'll just say that again. Why are empty words harmful? Can you describe why this is so?
Very simply, such empty words take up time and energy which should have been used by the speaker for self-maturing. And since time and energy are being wasted, that is detrimental to the purpose of life. Why? Because that time granted for one to mature has been wasted, and therefore is very detrimental. It's like you go to a school, the time you should have used to do your work and mature, you just waste it. So it becomes dangerous because you don't have all the time in the world to stay here on earth.
Thank you for that. There's something I remember from the Bible of what Jesus said, which is, I was trying to find the actual quote, but from the actual reference from the Bible, but at the moment I can't find it. But that is basically, let your communication be yea or nay. It's in the Bible, Jesus saying, let your communication be yea or nay. What did he mean by that?
He was guiding against contradiction, such that the communication is not self-contradictory. When a speech is given, which means yes, at the same time which means no, it does not carry any specific import to a listener. Because it is not specific, it does not mean go, it doesn't mean come, it doesn't mean to remain on the same spot. That becomes dangerous, becomes very confusing. And from confusion, it's like you have, before long, a lot of things will act against themselves and will cause destruction. Imagine an army that is supposed to march from point A to point B, and an order is given, go. And at the same time, or another is given, and that order, no one understands it, whether it's to go or to stay or to come. Such will cause so much catastrophe because there is no clarity. Only in clarity and in simplicity can a human spirit proceed aright. Else, with such confusion, that leads to destruction.
Thank you for that. What you pointed out is this, being consistent, and clarity, and that's essential for, let's say, direction of your life, because once you're clear, you know which way to go and how to act. But if things are not clear, confusing, like you say, then of course you're not sure what you're doing, and you will obviously doubt everything. You're pretty much doubting what you're thinking, and so if the communication is not clear, then the results will also be similar. So, yep, thank you for bringing that out. I also want to look at just words by themselves. Are they enough, you could say, to wield power and influence? That's what you were saying. Well, actually, we're talking about the greatest talkers wielding greatest power and influence. But, let me bring sort of another factor into it. How about money or material possessions and things? Is that not also a very important ingredient in having power and influence? Because let's say in the world today, the bigger corporations are able to, let's say, make donations to the political parties or some campaigns, and they influence, their own agenda that they want to make profit in. I don't want to pick any specific field, because in a way we know, let's say there's arms, there's, and others, let's say, wherever the big corporations, let's say, exist, and it doesn't really matter what field it is, because sometimes you think it's only we're almost thinking automatically of negative things, like arms. I'm thinking of that, and for businesses, let's just use the word businesses, and they have obviously they want to promote their own business. And so my question is, Gregory, is money almost more powerful or a factor than even the words or the talkers, the greatest talkers, in having influence?
What is referred to as money is only a means for exchange when it comes to in the earthly sphere or in the earthly environment. One has to be clear that these means of exchanges may only influence one's decision. In one's decision, that is where power lies. For power itself is neutral. It is possible to influence some other person to make decisions on the wrong path. So it is the influence which is being stressed in most cases. Whether it is words can also influence, but the decision has to be taken by the individual. So one can't say it is money is powerful. Money is not powerful. It only influences a personality. Take for instance, when we are talking about human beings, one may talk about money for those who recognize it. But for those who don't use money and use some other means, these are only means of exchanges. So it is not right to equate or bring money in and that money is powerful. Power is only a result of one's personal intuitive decision, how to go. But that person may be influenced by one thing or the other. How the person decides is left to him or her. So corporations, like you mentioned, may only influence others to make a decision even against themselves. The question one must always ask oneself, can one be influenced by money to shoot himself in the head or to destroy his own family? How many will want to take such a decision? Very few. So, but one may be influenced by money.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Again, just shows you do have to reflect deeply about all these concepts that actually what exactly is influence, what exactly is power, and how we and you pointed out the decision that is always in our hands, which you can say even if somebody did put a gun on your head or something, it's still your decision. Yes, you could be influenced or what appears to have power on you, but really it's only you who make the decision, not anyone else. Nobody can remove your decision. So so the influence is you allow yourself to be influenced, or you let's say it's influence might be there, but in the end it's always in your own hands how you decide. Thank you for that.
May I also add that what is referred to as power now must also be contemplated with responsibilities. For when one makes a decision or a set of decisions, that particular personality is bound to the consequences of the decisions he has made along the line. Only he himself is responsible for this. So power is tied with responsibilities. Although what you now have with dictators or autocrats, these are personalities who wish to make decisions and at the same time do not wish to take responsibilities for them. That is how many will recognize that personality who is a dictator or who is autocratic. For if every person knows that they themselves are responsible for the consequences of their activities, then they will be very careful, for it will then force them to reflect in such a way that whatever decisions they make will bring benefits not only to them on the short run, but also on the long run, and to the people whom, like him, are striving to make a living and to do these things which will be beneficial to the society as a whole.
Thank you for that. I've got a couple of questions from a listener now. I just want to have a look at them. It's sort of related to what we discussed earlier about meaning of words, really, being empty or, how they could cause harm. So, okay. Okay, so I'm going to say this question from the listener, which is: people socialize by jesting and telling stories, especially in parties and social gatherings. How can this pub culture be refined? So what I would say, Gregory, sounds like people talk casually, after work, let's say, they want to relax, they go for a drink. I'm just making this my own way of presenting this question, and so they want to relax and enjoy themselves, have a drink, like I say, and they'll just gist and just tell stories at parties or social gatherings. And so the question is, how can this pop culture be refined? I was going to ask. Yeah, go on.
Whatever stories are presented, these stories should be those with high moral values or high meanings, which along the line will help all those participating in such discussions towards self-maturity. Not just words which must be spoken or which have to be spoken just to keep time going. Such words are complete waste of time. It is wrong to say one cannot be serious every time. For if one has a good volition, it means therefore that one has to be serious. And only that which is helpful to the community or to the gathering could be discussed, even whilst drinking. Else, it's a waste of time. Would they want to be talking or gossiping about people? Which gossips, if it were directed to them, they themselves will not like it? Will they be happy that such gossips are directed at his or her parents? Which gossips, if were directed to other people's parents, they wouldn't like it? Some of these so-called social discussions are so devastating that many don't realize it initially. But before too long, they will come to see the implications. And again, such are due to personal decisions.
Can I ask you further on that? So, is the comedy not a good thing to make light of things?
When comedy is spoken of, it is very similar to drama. Certain points are to be stressed to make one see the other side of things, and therefore such are helpful. If such comedies are created to denigrate any group of people or any personality, if such comedies are created to look down or to insult any set of people or any personality, then the writer of such must take the responsibility. For if such were directed at him or his tribe or his race, or for those that will be close to him, he himself or herself will not like it. And therefore, that which you do not want to be done to you, one shouldn't try to do it to other people. If such comedies are such that one is able to love one's neighbor as oneself, one's neighbor who, like him, is striving to come to better recognition, then it is helpful.
Thank you for that. From what you're saying, it sounds like we mustn't put anything. Obviously, I can hear you can. From what you're saying, we shouldn't be hateful. It should not be disrespectful, and so on. There should be positive message, let's say, within these words. However, it is expressed, in a comical way. So that's. What you're saying, Gregory, in effect, in summary, is anything that we do should be beneficial and not detrimental. Would I be correct to say that?
That would be correct.
Right. So, yes. And obviously, let's look at the world today. In this modern world, we have lots of this social media, this Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and now this TikTok is there as well. And they're very, very popular. And yes, you get, let's say, shaming. I'm going to use the one example, maybe fat shaming, or some sort of people tend to react to something that has happened, and a number of people get together and they think they can hide behind technology because somehow they're anonymous. So what I want to ask, with that type of technology, Gregory, you don't see the consequences of, let's say the people who do the negative or harmful things don't seem to get caught with the earthly system, justice system, with all this nasty, let's say, abuse that does happen. There's good things happen as well, but then, which of course people appreciate, but then these nasty things seem to escape human justice systems. So, and people think they can continue with that. And we know from many such cases, people have even gone as far to commit suicide with such of this abuse, quite serious consequences on that one. But the people who are the perpetrators, they seem to escape. How do they? We say there's justice and there's the natural laws that carry out the justice. How those people who are, let's say, doing verbal harm, how do they get their justice? If it's not the human way that can be done, how does it work for those people? Because they're using words, as abuse rather than, physical actions.
It is very clear that before some things are written down, first they would have reflected over it in their brains, and by doing such, it's concentrated and they then put it down in words. So in their thoughts, there they have initiated the activities. Such activities are not just nothing. It has been well registered. As with everything in creation, such initiations are well recorded, and in accordance with the laws of nature, these thought forms are attracted. The thought forms are attracted in the sense that there are other stakeholders, or one may refer to as shareholders, those who have contributed to the formation of such thoughts, by which finally someone may be off his guard, wrote them down and circulated them. So in accordance with these laws, these thought forms, they have forms which have now concentrated. And these thought forms will keep maturing and grow. Before too long, these thought forms will have to manifest physically, returning after maturity that which those stakeholders have put in place, such that they themselves will have to experience what they once had sown. Such could be while still here on earth. Such returns could be when they then come back, which is referred to as reincarnation. Such thoughts could maybe be in the beyond, where their physical body is no more functional, but they have dropped their physical body. Or definitely, that which a personality has once initiated, that is what he or she will have to gather when the harvest comes. And therefore, justice will be very well served.
Thank you for what you've said there, Gregory. What I'm wondering is that, it sort of makes sense what you've said, but the thing is, people are not, do not see these things. They're all invisible things that are happening in the beyond or in the next life. And, it's not like you are aware that this is, physical things which you see in front of your eyes, you do some action and then, then you can see the consequence of that. But these words, the effect of the words, it doesn't seem to manifest in a, let's say, in a very, let's say, easy to see way. And so I want to understand, I mean, people could say what you've said there maybe just theoretical, might be the case, but it's not real, could be, but you don't know. And so my point on that is, Gregory, are we able to sense that what you have said, that this is likely what you're going, let's say you say harmful words and then you get harmful consequences in the beyond or in the next life, but is there some way of sensing it before those things happen? And something like because as I said, they say talk is cheap, and it's very easy to say words, but not so easy to spot or to realize the consequence of these words. So how can we realize this consequence or know that these consequences are going to happen?
Many who ask such questions have only tied up their perception to the intellectual perception. Were they to open up themselves, they will now understand that there is also the intuitive perception, which perception are vibrations or activities of the spirit. Therefore, along the line, they themselves, if they are intuitive enough, can perceive some of these vibrations or some of the threads of these vibrations that they have put in place. It is personal indolence to say because we are unable to see words and therefore we do not believe. After all, we never see words. No one has ever seen a word. But one can hear a word. One can hear expressions. Therefore, one will have to use the analogous or the homogeneous channel for perception to be able to come to a cognition or a recognition. Each person who is mature knows there are 5 senses granted to man. That of smell. We do not see smell. We cannot hear smell. We can only perceive smell through our nostrils. We do not see sound. So with the right channel, one is able to perceive that which one needs. So each personality must strive to open themselves and let their perception come into vigorous activity. Then some of these questions will vanish.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Blessed Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And if you're interested in getting more information or want to get a copy of the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic we are discussing tonight is why the greatest talkers wield the greatest power and influence. Why the greatest talkers wield the greatest power and influence. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Dear listeners, I want to read, I know we've had an earlier reading from the Grail message. I want to read another reading now, which is from the lecture called The Human Word, just the beginning of it. Just it's so appropriate to this topic for tonight. And so I would like to read that now. Again, just to remind you, the lecture is called The Human Word, from the Grail message in the light of truth. As a great grace for your maturing in the coarse world of matter, the ability to form words has been bestowed upon you human beings by the Creator. You have never recognized the true value of this sublime gift because you did not trouble yourselves about it and treated it carelessly. Now you must suffer bitterly under all the consequences of your wrongdoing. who stand in this affliction and do not yet know the causes which bring such suffering in their way. No one may trifle with the gifts of the Almighty without harming himself. Such is the law which rests and works in creation and which can never be diverted. And when you consider that this being able to speak, thus your ability to form words which anchor your volition in the world of gross matter through speaking, is a specially high gift of your Creator, then you will also know that it involves obligations for you and that an immense responsibility arises therefrom, for it is with language and through it that you are to work in creation. The words you form, the sentences, shape your outward fate on this earth. They are like seed in a garden which you build around you. For each human word is part of the most vital thing that you can weave for yourselves in this creation. Today I give you this with an admonition to think it over. There is a releasing quality in every word, because all words are firmly anchored in the primordial laws of creation. Every word shaped by man has come into being under the pressure of higher laws, and according to its application must manifest formingly in a very definite way. The application lies in man's hands according to his free volition. However, he is unable to control the effect, which is strictly and justly governed in conformity with the holy law by a power hitherto unknown to him. Therefore, in the final reckoning, woe will now fall upon every human being who has abused the mysterious working of the word. But where is the man who has not yet sinned in this respect? For thousands of years, the whole earthly race has been deeply entangled in this guilt. What harm has already been spread throughout this earth by the wrong application of this gift of being permitted to speak? Through ruinous, thoughtless, and idle talk, all men have sown poison. The seed has duly sprung up, the plant has blossomed forth, and now bears the fruit which you must harvest, whether you like it or not, for it is all the consequences of your actions that are now thrown into your lap. That this poison must bring forth the most repulsive fruits will not surprise anyone who knows the laws in creation, which do not conform to the ideas of men, but serenely pursue their great course irresistibly, without deviation from the primordial beginning, and also unchanged unto all eternity. Look around you, men, clearly and without bias. You must easily recognize the self-acting divine laws of the most holy will, because you do have before you the fruits of your sowing. Wherever you look, you will find that today high-sounding talk predominates and leads in everything. This seed has come to swiftly to such flower to reveal now in the ripening its true kernel, whereby it will then collapse as useless. It had to ripen under the increased pressure from the light and must shoot up as if in a hothouse, so that losing every support through its hollowness, it will fall and bury all who with light-hearted confidence or selfish hope imagine themselves safe under its protection. The time of harvest has already begun. Therewith, all the consequences of wrong speaking now fall back upon the individual as upon an
Hello?
Gregory?
Hello?
Gregory, can you hear me?
Hello? Hello?
Hello, Gregory? I am
Yes, I
not
can
quite
hear
sure
you.
what happened there. Did you hear me reading?
Yeah, you were reading, then it stopped.
Stop. How long was that? So I'm not quite sure when it got cut off.
About 5 minutes ago.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Apologies. Okay. What I'm going to do, I'm not going to reread at all. What I will do is just to recap. I was reading from the lecture, The Human Word, in the Grow Message. It was basically talking about the power of the word, which has been given as a gift to man, and how we've used it really carelessly with thoughtless, idle talk, which is basically a way you could say planting a seed of poison, which has now come to harvest over thousands of years of our existence of talking and of existing and talking. And it says that talks about the harvest we're reaping the fruit of that harvest now. And where people who are, let's say, in power or influence are the greatest talkers. That's what we find now. And what's going to happen is that we will discover the hollowness of these talks, that people who have been talking hollow, and it had to be that this had to culminate in this way, that such people with the hollow talk came to power, so that and have this greatest influence on us, on the world. So that doesn't sound too good, because it means it means that there's a lot of let's say activity that is taking place already, which has been harmful and wasting time and, as you said, energy, but it's coming to the fruition only now. So so Gregory, that we didn't think about that before. I could say that we know there's every action has a consequence. We know about the natural laws which has consequence, but these are like long-term consequences over a long period of action. So, Gregory, it looks like we're in a terrible situation. So, is there any hope, Gregory? Because if this is a time of harvest, is there any hope for us?
Well, that's a very good question. There is always hope if one makes use of the help which is always available. And that help is a complete understanding of the laws of creation or the laws of nature through which they themselves came into existence. An understanding of this will help many a personality know how to navigate through life in such a way that he himself will not precipitate those things which on the long run or on the short run will come back to haunt him or to destroy him.
Thank you. And so you're saying we have to come to recognition of, let's say, well, obviously the consequences of what we have done up to now, and so what would be the advice, Gregory? How should we be speaking? How should we be acting? You say come to recognition. Recognition of how should we be, and let me just ask that: how should we be? How should we speak?
Along the line, you yourself made the reference to let your communication be simple, and let your yes be yes and your no be no. Ensure there is consistency and not confusion. Therefore, in such a manner, the speaker or the initiator will reap that which is also consistent and not destructive.
Thank you. Thanks for that. So, and the other thing is, what I want to say, Gregory, these are human words we have been talking about, and we were living in this creation, which is, say, the God's Almighty's creation, which we obviously can say His power is greater than man's power. Now, would you say that because of the destruction that man has caused, now the Almighty's power has to take over and sort of clean up this mess and destruction that we have put out? Because when I read it, it was saying it was over thousands of years of activity, and I'm thinking, well, let's say some people realize that it's time to change now, but and you said there's always hope, but in a sense, if it's been going on for thousands of years, it's not going to be, let's say, reversible that quickly. So maybe, should we be even also maybe praying, Gregory? I mean, you say heed your word, your communication be yea or nay, mean what you say. But is that enough by itself? Do we also need God's help, in a higher power, let's say, to turn this world around?
In the first instance, there is the wrong impression that man has power. Man has never had any intrinsic power. Power has always flowed from out of the source, the highest in creation or in the divine. And that is the power which is neutral, the power of the Almighty. Man only has the effect or decision. Man is able to decide where the bit that flows through him, he himself or herself can direct it. And in initiating such a direction, if it is of all building, man will reap benefit. If not, it will reap destructions. For maturity of what has been put in place, of what man has initiated, will come, and he himself will have to reap it. So it must be very clear that man is only lent power, but has not got his own intrinsic power. Therefore, it is possible. Therefore, it is possible that when the need arises for clarity and purification, it is man himself who has to purify himself in his or her decisions. That now moves to the realm of to be. If man continues to misuse this power, then the returns will be such that before too long, he will sweep himself away from creation, for the returns will be such that it will destroy him. The Creator need not do anything to that effect. However, it is possible for help from the light to be made available, which help is to point out or to stress and make it more recognizable that there are laws in nature or laws in creation, and how man can switch or can change his decisions for the better. That is the help that is made available. Such help that will assist the human spirit in making decisions. Such a help is what is now available in the walk in the light of truth, the Grail message. But it doesn't mean that anyone should just accept it. It first has to be examined thoroughly. It must be examined intuitively to find out if it brings benefit or not. Only then can man then go forward confidently and subsequently courageously.
Thank you for that, Gregory. For your comprehensive answer there. Really, listeners, just to remind you, if you, as Gregory's pointed out, that you can get, let's say, help or understanding from the Grail message, and I just want to point you to this website where you can go to get more information on the Grail message or get a copy for yourself, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that now. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And Gregory, we're sort of coming to the end of our show now. So I just want to, I think we can just summarize really what we've been talking today. So we've realized that the words we speak do have an effect or influence. There's no power inherent in them just by itself, but how we respond, that you could say the power comes through that, and the impact of that comes through that. And but we haven't really realized the power or the influence of the words. And unless they have meaningless, careless talk, and think, oh, that's not much, and Gregory said it was like wasting time and energy, but it's actually destructive as well. Idle talk is actually destructive. It might sound casual, but actually this is a energy, you could say, being given from the Creator for use to benefit creation, and if it's not used properly, it will hit us. And of course, we can also use this energy, let's say in a positive way, to uplift, and in a meaningful way, where people are inspired, but when we say inspired, not with some calculated agenda or something, but actually really to benefit people. And I think Gregory also mentioned really we need to be, when we speak, it has to be consistent. The words we speak must be consistent, must be real, that our intention is very clear from it. So I just want to give it back to you, Gregory. Anything you want to share as we finish tonight, to say, summarize and to say goodbye to the listeners?
Well, we always wish every listener great strength and very well, in such a way that they should pick up the courage to examine for themselves that which is contained in the Walk in the Light of Truth, the Grail message.
Thank you for that. So yes, listeners, apologies for the interruption today. We seem to have quite a few hiccups, and hope you were able to gain from what was said today. The topic is actually quite important, and it may not be obvious, the consequences of our words and the impact they can have, because we can't see them. However, we have these senses. Gregory, I remember you mentioned them. We know about the 5 senses. That, let's say touching, smelling. It's like we don't need to think too much about them. However, when it comes to the words we speak, yes, they're much wider in their impact, but we treat them even less carefully. And as I said, because you don't see them. However, you could say that no, it's not like just because you can't see something, it doesn't mean it doesn't have an impact, and how big the impact can be. So, I'm not going to go further now because we've come to the end of the show tonight. So, listeners, hope you have enjoyed this show and gained from what we shared. And we'll be back again next week, Tuesday, again, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. with a new topic again. And hope you can join us. I wish you a great week. God bless. Take care, everybody. Have a great week. All the best.